Welcome into Between the Pylons. I'm John Camacho.
And this is Jacob Waters.
And we are doing our very first Power Rankings video. We are super excited to bring this to the channel. We will be doing it every single week. It will be coming out on Wednesdays. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We would really appreciate it. Let's get right into it. First, I do want to explain how we're doing the Power Rankings, and then we will pull up our full Power Rankings and discuss from there. Basically, each of us are individually giving our own rankings 1 to 32, and then we are mashing it together, averaging it out, and that is how we are getting the official Between the Pylons Power Rankings. So you will hear us, disagreeing with certain spots. We'll obviously disagree on certain teams and discuss from there. For the most part, we did have a lot of agreements. I think it was kind of interesting. The first 8 we agreed on. We had it ordered a little differently, but the first 8 teams on this list were all the same, and then the bottom 4 were the same. And then from there, you could kind of mix it up however you want to go. And honestly, I think that's the best way you can explain the NFL right now. It's kind of a microcosm of, all right, I think we know who the really bad teams are, at least we think we do right now. And I think we know, or at least we think we know, who the really good teams right now that could be really competing for a Super Bowl. And then there's a lot of conversations you could have in between about who has a chance to jump up into that conversation and who doesn't. But let's get right into it. Let's put up the Between the Pylons rankings right now.
All right, guys, so now you should be able to see the Between the Pylons Power Rankings on your screen. And I'm just going to go ahead and take a second to talk about these elite teams. It's teams 1 through 8. John and I both felt the same way about these. Interchangeable on our list, 1 through 8, of course, but we're going to start off with Kansas City Chiefs. I'll go ahead and throw the Tampa Bay Bucks in there too. These two teams are, I would say there could be a little bit of a gap there just because of how good they are, in my opinion. Kansas City, we know what they're coming with, that offense, that Andy Reid style. They're going to be back, and they are the top dog in the AFC, and I think they are the litmus test for any single team out there on the entire list. We will compare them and look at them and say, okay, but can they beat the Chiefs? Mm-hmm. Can they do that? I will also say with Tampa Bay at 2, they are kind of that same litmus test where I'm going to look at how well they are able to handle this team. Mm-hmm. Overall, I had the Buccaneers at number 1 on my list. Yeah. I know you had Chiefs at 2, or at 1 for you.
Yes.
Buccaneers for me, just because I feel that they're a more complete overall team, top to bottom. Mm-hmm. That defense is loaded. I mean, they have ones across the board. Tom Brady-led offense, and it's the ability with Tom Brady and that offense to still think they can win a game even if he's having an off day. Because, for the most part, there were some really, really off games last year, and a few of them came in the playoffs. But this team was still able to keep things going. Both teams bringing the band back together. And then after this, it kind of gets a little different. Cleveland Browns at 3. Where'd you have them on your list off top?
You had him at 3.
Yes.
I actually had him at 2.
Okay.
And my thought process was I looked at this and I said top to bottom, I think it is one of the most complete teams.
Yeah.
I look at every single position group and would argue, maybe outside of quarterback, I wouldn't say Baker is a top 5 quarterback, but beyond that, I would say almost every single position group, if you ranked them, they're in the top 5. They have the best offensive line. I think their defensive line is really close to top 5, if not in there. Yeah. I would argue their wide receiver core, top 5. I certainly would take that duo over most of the duos in the NFL. And then, their backfield, their linebackers, top to bottom, I think they're a special football team. So, yeah, I went a little high. I put my money where my mouth is and put them 2. Obviously, they ended up 3 on our list, which I'm totally fine with. But, yeah, that was my thought process there.
No, I feel the same, though, in saying I thought I was going to have a shock for some people in saying listing the Cleveland Browns at 3 overall.
Yeah.
But when you start dissecting this roster, this team has no excuses at this point.
No.
They're going in the second year of Kevin Stefanski. The system really worked well. Baker's finally able to grow in that, because a lot of times where I would defend Baker and say, he's been on 4 different coaches in 4 different years and 4 different offenses and 4 different coordinators and blah, 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 blah. First year that he gets to go back into the same system here. And the system worked last year. They're a few plays away from upsetting the Chiefs in the playoffs. And when you are that good, that capable, yes, that's why they're number 3 on the list right there. The next team in Buffalo Bills, I am a huge supporter in Josh Allen, huge supporter in this team overall. But from here on out, I would say from 4 down, these are still, like we said, we keep them in the elite category, but there is something about the team that I can kind of like nitpick, I guess, in a way to be like, they might be lacking in that area. They might be missing there. Did they address that in the offseason? Buffalo's was, I would say, the defensive pass rush, the defensive line overall.
Line general,
they tried their best. They made the moves. We got to see if they hit now. So they definitely tried to address it, and we're going to see going forward. They have to be able to win some games through their defense and not solely put it on that offense. The offense is plenty capable. We know that they are, but if you're trying to build a fully sound, complete football team, you got to get an effective pass rush.
No, I absolutely agree with that. I think, they just need to hit on those first 2 picks. Got 2 defensive linemen in the draft this past year. They've invested a lot in that position group. We're going to see if it works out. And really, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they moved up. There's not a lot of places to go but down at sitting at 4th overall. But honestly, they're one of those teams, if that pass rush becomes, what it has the potential to be, I will say with the talent on that roster, it certainly has the potential. We just haven't seen it and we don't know yet. But yeah, I absolutely agree. It could be very, very dangerous. This is a team that would not surprise me a bit if they are in the Super Bowl. They just have to get through some really tough opponents in the AFC.
They do, definitely. But I feel it's one of those things to where how we looked at the Chiefs and the people that would come play them, how every opponent has the Chiefs circled is like, we're going to figure out what we are right here. I think Buffalo is starting to get some street cred to them and be like, they're circling them on that list and be like, that's the game. Number 5 for the Rams, I was really high on the Rams. I'm still high on the Rams. I know that I can even admit that I'm overly bullish on them in a way and saying that that's my Super Bowl winner. But then again, when we both agreed on these 1 through 8 teams overall, top to bottom, should it really surprise anyone? I don't think that is because they're elite for a reason.
Yeah, I had the Rams at 6. You had them at 5. I really think you can say pretty much the same thing between the Rams, Packers, and 49ers, and I'll even throw the Ravens in there, the bottom 4 of this top 8. I think I could say similar things as far as I think they are an elite football team. I think they certainly have some question marks at certain positions, one way or the other. Obviously, for the Ravens, it's can they get over the playoff hump? Have they figured out Lamar? For the 49ers, it's the questions at the quarterback position, and for the Packers, yeah, exactly. And for the Packers, it's I won't say questions at the quarterback position because we know the answer this year at least, but I will say again, they've made the NFC Championship twice. Can they get over that hump and get to the Super Bowl? There seems like they're a really, really good regular season team. Can they get over that final hump?
They peaked too early.
Yeah, exactly. I absolutely agree. And the Rams, man, they look like a super team on paper. They really do.
They do.
Yeah. But let's move on. I actually am curious on your thoughts on this. What do you see a team outside of the top 8? Because I think we can make a really good argument for any team inside the top 8 on they could go to the Super Bowl and win. And I think most people would agree that you could at least see the argument. You could see a world where that happens. Outside of the top 8, what's the one team that you really think has a chance to win the Super Bowl this year?
Outside of the 8?
Yeah.
So that's hard. It is. But if I'm going off of those parameters and I'm going to look at it, we have the Titans at 9, the Steelers at 10, and Washington 11, and I'll go ahead and say Seattle 12. I can make a case for each and every one of those teams if I had to. The most realistic one in my head would probably be the Tennessee Titans.
Really?
I know the defense and some of those areas in the secondary primarily where they might be lacking, but let's just say Farley steps up and he is the one. Okay, that box is checked, they're good to go. Christian Fulton, he's able to come in there, and they got him to where he could be the one, but he's not going to have to be that role. So he hits. You have Kevin Byard up top, veteran prowess, hopefully can help this younger secondary kind of grow together. And then Bud Dupree comes back, and he's the piece. He is the missing link finally to getting that pass rush going to where these linebackers can now kind of free flow, and they run that 3-4 to perfection with Jeffrey Simmons becoming a household name up front. Yeah, I don't even have to talk about the offense. We know what that is. It is a formidable offensive line. Nothing to really write home about, I guess. Top 5 overall. They've missed some pieces along the way. You have Derrick Henry, though, who I truly think can go back-to-back 2K. And if back-to-back 2K happens, that means the Titans offense is doing exactly what they want to do. Hit you in the mouth, make you hurt for 4 quarters, and keep it going. And then the addition of Julio, A.J. Brown is continuing to be a rising star in the league. Ryan Tannehill, top 10-ish quarterback. There's a world where they can do this. They play the Ravens a lot. They play the Bills. They've played the Chiefs. They have beaten all of those teams on certain occasions. There's no reason they can't do that in these late January, December games going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways their offense is built for December. I mean, it's built for January. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me a bit. We've seen them really defeat some teams that I think on paper were better than them over the past couple of years in the playoffs. I'm talking about the Ravens game when they won. They beat the Patriots in the playoffs that one year. So yeah, it would not surprise me a bit if they were able to put it together and make a Super Bowl run. And I would love to see it. Maybe give Ryan Tannehill a little bit of credit because I feel like he is unfairly shit on a little bit more than he deserves to be as far as like how good of a quarterback he actually is. I absolutely agree with that take. And any other team that really stands out to you? I know you took the Titans,
like I said, you have Steelers. I'm worried about their offensive line overall. Big Ben's still getting a little older. I'm not terrified. Like I could see it. I could see them. Pittsburgh is always a team They have a really good, young, tough defense. They have the offensive weapons overall, and if Najee's able to kind of take over and take some of the pressure out of Big Ben's hands right there, they're a team that can play late. Washington, I know that they are defensively capable of it, and they have some of the pieces on offense prepped to make a run, but overall Super Bowl-wise, I'm going to go ahead and pull them out just barely. I would say their ceiling is getting to the championship game. They could get to their conference championship game, and people would be like, wow, I'm impressed. Any more than that, it kind of feels a little too far-fetched.
Yeah. To me, I think Washington was the team that I picked. That like if I were to take a team just outside of the top 8 that I think can make a Super Bowl run, I think Washington would have been my first pick. I believe in that defense. I think their entire team's going to run through the defense. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick has the tools. I think he's kind of calmed down a little bit with the gunslinger. Don't care if I throw in 3 interceptions kind of mentality. I think he's cooled off on that just a little bit. At least it seemed like he did in Miami. I think he has all the weapons he needs there at the wide receiver position. I'm a big fan of De'Ami Brown. Obviously, Terry McLaurin, we know what he is. I think he's special. And then you have a Curtis Samuel in there to add out that wide receiver unit. I really, really love Antonio Gibson. Even if he's down, Jarrett Patterson, rookie running back, seems like a really, really good number 2. And that offensive line is certainly capable. I look at that team top to bottom. Yeah, it doesn't maybe look as good on paper. There's certainly some question marks offensively.
The defense does.
But man, I see a world where they could make a run. They're a team I'm very high on this year. I'm not predicting that by any means, but like in the parameters of, teams that could make a run and really be that team that actually beats the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs, the Rams in the playoffs, the Packers in the playoffs, like a team that could do that. I see Washington as a team that has that capability.
I get that for sure. And since we're talking about jumps then, so we went ahead and labeled out the elites, the 1 through 8s. And you asked me about a team that might be able to make that jump from the 10-ish in the teens up. What team for you can you see making a realistic jump from the late 20s or 20? Let's just say 20 and down. Then can make a jump and put themselves in this position next year to be like maybe they can be the guys.
Yeah, so I mean, if you've listened to the podcast at all or anybody like that in the audience, you know what my answer is probably going to be. Sitting there at 21 overall, listen, I couldn't put the Panthers any higher on my personal overall ranking because I just have to be realistic with the question marks that are there. But man, I really believe in this football team. I think you actually have to start with the defense when you talk about the Carolina Panthers, and I think Panthers fans kind of know this, but the rest of the NFL I don't think realizes how good this defense is going to be this year. A lot of young, hungry talent. If you really just look at how they've performed, or I'll say over the past 2 years, but really last year specifically with some of their younger guys, it's incredibly impressive. It feels like they have a team that, maybe not household names yet, but they have a lot of young and upcoming stars. And it would not surprise me a bit if we're talking about the Carolina Panthers defense as one of the best in the league by the end of the year and to start next year with this young talent really, showcasing their talent and showcasing their ability to be one of the best in the league. Oh, and by the way, they spend the least amount of money of any team in the NFL on the defense. That tells you how young they are, how much potential they have, and they've really grown it through the draft. And then offensively, I mean, I've beat my head into the ground just screaming Terrace Marshall's name. I loved that pick in the second round. I know I'm starting with Terrace Marshall and working up the depth chart at wide receiver, but obviously Robbie Anderson, we know what he is. We know how good he can be with a Sam Darnold who's at quarterback, and then DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore has the potential to make a huge jump. And again, listen, I know I'm talking about potential and jump. It's just the team that I've been on the entire time, but DJ Moore has the potential to make that jump. The Stephon Diggs jump, I'll say. Stephon Diggs, obviously everyone knew was a really good wide receiver. I feel like people know that DJ Moore is a good wide receiver, but last year Stephon Diggs was able to showcase that he is an elite, borderline top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, right? That's what he was able to do, and I think DJ Moore has that potential. Maybe not to that same level because there's a lot of mouths to feed on that offense, and it maybe won't be like as statistically impressive. I think DJ Moore has that potential to be that in the NFL. I'm a huge fan, obviously. So the top 3 wide receivers, I think Sam Darnold is going to fit really, really well into this offense. There will be some speed bumps. There will be some bumps in the road. I love Joe Brady as a potential head coach candidate coming up into next season. Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator right now, he was in the OC for the LSU Tigers when they won the championship with Joe Burrow, and now he is with the Panthers, and I really think he's just a rising star in the coaching world as, the quote unquote offensive mastermind type of guy. He spent a lot of time in New Orleans under Sean Payton, so like he has a good little pedigree, and I expect a lot from his offense this year. And listen, I said all that to say, and I haven't even mentioned CMC, who, if he's healthy for 17 games, I think it's going to be a lethal combination. This is the team that I really could see us talking about as a serious contender next year, in the same way that we're talking about the Bills this year, compared to how we were talking about the Bills to start the season last year. That's my pick. You originally said late 20s. I do want to give a quick shout out to the New York Jets. I think they're a rising star. I think they're going to have a big jump as far as, obviously I don't think they're a playoff contender this year or anything like that. I do think Zach Wilson is going to be lethal.
They're making the right moves.
I really believe that. Yeah, I think they're going to be lethal offensively. I really believe in the offense that they have, the coaching staff and everything. It is that Kyle Shanahan, that Matt LaFleur style offense. So we're going to see a lot of those elements, which we know works in the NFL. So that's a really good starting point. I think Zach Wilson is a rising star. I think Zack Wilson will be the most impressive rookie quarterback this season. I'm not saying the best long term. I'm saying year one. I think he has enough pieces around him to make it work year one. I'm a big fan of Elijah Moore, who's just been an absolute, everybody's been loving him in camp. Obviously, had the groin injury. We haven't been able to see him in preseason or anything like that yet, but there's a lot of highest hopes for him. Corey Davis, we really like. Jameson Crowder still down on that roster, and so really good slot. So opportunity galore there for the Jets. They're not a complete team. Their defense, we don't have to talk about just yet, but I do think they're a team that we're going to look at the end of this year or throughout the season as a team that they're just going to keep bumping up the rankings. We're just going to keep seeing more and more that we like out of this team. And so those are my two picks. I know I went long on there.
No,
but
you're good.
I had to get it out
I only have one thing to add before we move on then, and it's kind of cheating just a little bit because this team sits at 19, but it is the New England Patriots though. I think they do have the answer at quarterback. If you can kind of pick up the tone in my voice, it's almost like, oh my God, here we go again. Just because I do think that they took a year off, kind of had a weird placeholder in the Cam Newton dilemma, if you will. Mac is the guy. They feel strongly enough about him, and I trust Belichick and the coaching staff around them with Josh McDaniels and all them to know that they wouldn't put him in that spot unless they do think that he is capable of taking this team to wherever they need to go. They reloaded that defense, and people forget about all the opt-outs they had last year on the COVID front. It was detrimental to that team.
Absolutely.
Top to bottom, offense, defense, all of it. So, yes, there's still a lot of pieces that they need to address. Damian Harris, though, I look for him to be a breakout star, especially when it comes to fantasy terms. I'm really in love with Jacoby Myers, personally, just because of what Mac Jones is able to do when it comes to pushing the ball down the field. Just look for New England. They're still here, and I do think that they're going to be able to just break the playoffs this year.
I love that take, man. I really do. I mean, I'm a Dolphins fan, so I don't love it too much, but I certainly appreciate that and can agree with everything you're saying. All right, let's close out the show with one final thing. We are going into week one. We are going to be doing this every single week, and we'll be talking about the moves every single week for up and down as far as the teams as a whole. What is the team, just looking at a 1 week span after this week, who is the team that you think can have the biggest jump forward? I'm going to go first, and I'm going to say your Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to steal from you a little bit. Your Minnesota Vikings, they get to play the Bengals. They get to play the Cincinnati Bengals this week. I think the Vikings are going to show out. I think, listen, there's a lot of issues with the Vikings. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm excited about their team. I said on the podcast, I've said numerous times over the offseason, I think this is the final year for Zimmer. I think, there's going to be, this could be the final year for Cousins, depending on how that contract looks. I don't know the details on that, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's a rebuild conversation next year. So, overall, not incredibly excited about that team, but the Vikings, I think, are going to be able to show you their best case scenario for this team against the Cincinnati Bengals. They should be able to run at will, which is what they're going to want to do. I'm not worried about any of the corners at Cincinnati. Their top corner that they got in free agency is hurt. So that's a big step forward as far as, Justin Jefferson getting free, Thielen getting free. I think this is going to be a good week one for the Vikings, and I could see them making a sizable jump up in week one.
Well, we need it overall, too. When you look at the team top to bottom, this is only it. Vikings favored by 3.5. And I don't know if I feel confident enough to really put the money on that, just because there is a world where I guess that the Vikings come out and...
I could be wrong on that one.
They disappoint us in that way. But I'm glad you said that, though. Yeah. Mine's hard to say that they're going to make a big jump, but I definitely think that if you look at our 1 through 8, and there was a question mark for, I guess, the average fan based on last year's performance, I'm going to say it falls with the San Francisco 49ers at 7. Just because last year was an underwhelming, they kind of had their floor season. And with the injuries and all of that whatnot, they play the Detroit Lions, who we know is a bottom dweller team. And I think this is the way for Kyle Shanahan and this group to really get going. And I'm telling you, I think it's a train, man. Once they start going and once they get full speed, get out of the way. The only thing that can take them out of this is themselves. And that's what's happened in years past, unfortunately, with these injuries. But I'm going to look for the 49ers to really assert themselves and say, hey, we are here. I know me and you both feel the same about that, but maybe not everyone out there does. 49ers are here, and they're going to have a damn good year.
Yeah, I love that a lot. And just to compound on that, it's a great chance for Trey Lance to, obviously he's not going to start week 1, but Trey Lance is at least going to get the opportunity to maybe see the field, get some confidence under his belt. I think, they're going to have some packages out there for Trey Lance, and what better team to kind of test it out against than the Detroit Lions. Sorry, Detroit Lions fans, but I think we can all agree this is the first year of your rebuild, and there's not a lot of high hopes in year 1. But yeah, no, I love that. We'll end it right there. Actually, let's close the book on the first episode of the Between the Pylons Power Rankings. Thank you so much for watching. Please let us know what you thought. If you didn't like some of our lists, you didn't like what we said, leave in the comments. All right, we very much appreciate the comments. If you are interested in watching this series from beginning to end, hey, subscribe. That really helps us out. And check out the Between the Pylons podcast that will be coming out on Tuesday. This video comes out on Wednesday, so that'll be out for you when you're watching this. And also be on the lookout for my player props bet show that we're going to be doing every single week as well, where I give you the best prop bets of the week in the NFL season. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Peace.
Thank you.